Leadership by Megan, Mikayla, Barbara, Jarvis, Oliver, and Sarah.
In our presentation, we're going to be looking at why leadership is important, some gender roles in leadership, Lewin's leadership theories, followed by contingency theory, and then a case study.
So why is leadership important? Fundamentally, leadership is about people. In the workplace, having an understanding of different types of leadership will help you better understand your coworkers, develop better relationships, and ultimately be more successful. Many workplaces have a hierarchical structure, so throughout your career you are likely to experience some form of leadership, either from being led or leading others. Today we will focus on situational leadership theory, which includes Lewin's leadership styles, contingency theory, and path goal theory.
So situational theory states that a leader should be able to adapt their behavior according to the situation or environment to best motivate their employees to achieve a goal. You can conclude from this that perhaps there aren't any particular traits that make a leader, but perhaps it's just an individual's ability to understand a situation and be able to adapt their behavior. So this brings us on to an issue of gender within leadership positions. So there's quite a large disconnect between the percentage of women in the workforce and the percentage of women within leadership positions. In the US, there's about 47% of women in the work population, but only about 14% of women are in the top management positions. And we've got to ask ourselves, why is there such a gender difference? So diving a little bit deeper into these gender role issues, most leaders are judged by their group's performance. Katz and Kahn identify that there are three main categories of leadership behavior that contribute to the group's performance. There's task direction, which is often very assertive and has a take charge nature. This is associated with males. There's boundary spanning behaviors, and then there's psychological supportiveness. And these supportive behaviors are often associated with females. So looking at this, we can see that both males and females have the ability and the capacity to perform all the necessary behaviors in order to achieve a good and effective leadership. But why is it that there is still such a big difference between the gender roles within the leadership positions? So when women do come into these leadership roles and they do engage within these more assertive behaviors aligned with leadership, they're quite often met with very negative social reaction. And this is because that behavior is going against all of the social norms that we expect from female behavior. Empirical evidence has suggested, however, that women and men don't differ when it comes to the leadership effectiveness. So in conclusion, this research suggests that while it's harder for women to acquire a leadership role because of their communal attributes, which can be seen as non-leadership-like, once they actually become leaders, those qualities make them more effective leaders.
Lewin and his team are credited as being the first to make a distinction between leadership styles in 1939. His theory was based around decision-making, a key part of leadership. Although his groupings of the leadership styles are criticized for being general, they are useful in demonstrating the high-level approach of leaders and their effects on a group. The authoritarian style is where the leader makes all the rules and choices independently. Group members are told what to do and when to do it, leaving little room for them to make decisions. There is a clear distinction here between the authority and the subordinates. This style is effective when large groups of people need to be coordinated. In most instances, however, authoritarian leadership leads to high group member dissatisfaction and lower team effectiveness. Democratic leadership, on the other hand, is characterized by collaborative leader and group member participation. The leader provides guidance and choices, but encourages group input to come to a final decision. This style was found to promote more camaraderie and goodwill amongst the group, but could be problematic when there are many opinions and no clear way of reaching an equitable decision. The laissez-faire style is essentially where there are no rules and the leader has very limited input. The group has freedom to make their own choices, but can ask for information from the leader. This style usually leads to unproductive and unsatisfied groups because work is not consistent between members and there's often a lack of motivation. Yet, this style has been found effective in environments with highly trained and capable members who are self-motivated to get the job done. Lewin's theory is great for understanding the high-level differences between leadership styles, but has been criticized for being too general to demonstrate reality. Although his theory has been developed further throughout the years, his initial experiments were done on children who may not have the same thinking as adults in the workplace.
It has been noted that an individual's behavior can influence the outcome within different situations. Contingency theory emerges from this situational approach and theorizes that leadership is influenced by an individual's ability in conjunction with the situation. There are 5 paths to the contingency theory. The first path I would like to look at is Fiedler's contingency theory. Fiedler developed the least preferred co-worker scale. This scale determines whether a leader is task-orientated or relationship-orientated. Neither orientation is unfavorable. However, in particular situations, one orientation may be preferred in comparison to the other. This theory is not widely supported. Johnson and Ryan suggest that this may be due to the fact that the model does not work when applied to laboratory groups. The second path, or theory I'd like to look at, is the path-goal theory of leadership, which stipulates that the leadership style is to motivate employees to complete a goal. There have been many studies testing this theory with very mixed support. Some studies provide quite strong evidence for this theory. However, many studies have disputed this theory. House makes a valid point that in order to test a theory like this, laboratory tests and procedures may not be effective. We need to look at more real-life situations.
In our first case study, we will be interviewing Bradley Goldschmidt, founder and CEO of Insurance Line. So tell me, what style of leadership do you think works best?
The leadership style that is used is often dependent on the issue or problem that the company faces at a specific time. All leadership styles, including the ones you've discussed above, are relevant, and I don't agree with some of the assumption that some leadership styles are better than others. The leadership style that is most effective is generally the one that suits the leader and gives them the most confidence.
What is the primary job of a leader?
In my opinion, a leader has 2 primary responsibilities. The first is to set a corporate vision that the entire team can unite behind, and perhaps even more importantly, is to create an environment for their team to thrive. As a leader, creating the right culture and atmosphere within the workplace is key to the success of the company. In setting up Insurance Line, we try to build an environment using one core philosophy, and it was really centered around this, that in this modern era, we work in an environment where there is very little work-life balance, i.e. they're blurred, and we spend more waking hours with our colleagues at work than with our families at home. I believe it's imperative to create a highly personalized workplace. I also believe that a good leader should allow and encourage an emotional bond both with and within the company.
You speak of putting your staff first. This seems rather unconventional. Most companies tend to talk about shareholders and customer needs. Can you tell me more about this?
You're quite correct. Our approach is unconventional. However, like many other things in life, we work on a very simple premise. And it's this, that our customers and our shareholders are simply beneficiaries of the work the business does. We believe that if you manage your core asset, that is your staff, you'll get infinitely better results. A happy, motivated, and empowered staff create happy, motivated, and empowered customers who will generally buy more and more often. This will provide better shareholder returns. However, there's one caveat to all of this, is that your approach to your team and your staff has to be genuine. Staff can quickly see through manipulation and will turn against you.
I am not sure I understand how culture plays such a big role in leadership, especially when relating to your boss works for you concept.
In fact, this area talks more to leadership than just about any other, because it creates a leadership framework for every manager in the business. It defines their approach, putting the responsibility for the team to achieve their goals onto the manager. This approach eradicates managing by fear and blame games, because failure of any team member to deliver is ultimately the responsibility of the manager and not the staff member.
Values are an important part of your company. Why, as a leader, do you place so much emphasis on them?
Well, if you think about it, values define us as individuals. They're really what differentiate us. They become our guiding principles or our own internal moral compasses. And it does exactly the same thing for businesses. The values that we created are the skeleton of our organization. And everything the company does, literally everything the company does, are derived from those values. And not only do they create a framework for how we interact and behave and operate internally, but they also create a framework of and define our role in a broader community. But the values go one step further, because they have to be lived every single day. And compromising your values means compromising who you are. Therefore, in our business, if values compromise profit, we'll drop profit. If values compromise growth, we'll drop growth.
So how does this impact your leadership style?
Well, if you think about it, we live in a very, very dynamic world, and we work in environments with highly skilled and highly effective competitors, which means that if we're going to be successful, we have to be able to react quickly and preempt the market. This can only be achieved through a situational leadership style, i.e., it requires a confident workforce who trust their ability, and that's what these values create.
So we decided to use a real-life, everyday case study. We wanted to take Mr. Goldschmidt's advice and his experiences and apply it to what we've learned about leadership. As Mr. Goldschmidt specifically said, you end up spending more time at work than you do at home. We therefore need to make the workplace a happy, comfortable and supportive place. This brings us back to Katz and Kahn's psychological supportiveness. Taking it back to that issue where females just don't seem to be placed in those leadership roles. Perhaps this could be further evidence that we need to overcome our prejudice of female behavior and allow and give females the opportunity to become effective leaders. Supporting our situational theory, Mr. Goldschmidt mentions that the companies face a variety of issues as he's experienced. An effective leader needs to be dynamic in order to overcome these issues. Furthermore, we live in a very fast-paced world and leaders need to be able to act quickly.
In conclusion, we have discussed the leadership is an essential ability for individuals to adopt in organizations and introduce its importance. This video briefly outlined the main theory, contingency theory, and company case study. Through this presentation, we appreciated for how much leadership that we can achieve. Thank you for watching this video.